I would first share in the chat where you're tuning in from. If you're in Winnipeg, the area of the city, just because that's my home base, so a lot of you guys are in that area, but I see lots of faces from all over right now. So love to hear where in the world you are at this very moment on the Zoom call. I kind of geek out on that stuff. So use the chat. Rock and roll. Got Kim. Okay, good. Guest. Yeah, some of you guys are coming in on the guest link. If you know how to change your name, on my screen, it's the 3 dots next to your video. And then you scroll down to rename, just so I know who I'm talking to, especially those without cameras on. We got Jeremy in Calgary, guest in Lockport, Weston, Winnipeg, Jackie, Andrew, yes, you remember, representing Winnipeg, St. Adolph, Fort Richmond. And if you end up coming unmuted, just try to stay muted because it will record your screen. There will be time for questions and interactions throughout, but I just want to ensure the recording is proper. Jayesh, whoa, that's a blast from the past. One of the OGs. Welcome to the call. Texas, St. James, Pilot Mound, Irene. Awesome. All right, so just fair warning, I'm actually an introvert at heart. So doing something like this is far outside my comfort zone, but I've done so many to this point that it's sort of second nature, but it's not something I necessarily like doing. But I know I have to get my message out, and this is one of the platforms to do it. So I appreciate you guys bearing with me, using the chat to engage, and we'll throw up the slides to ensure that you have something visual to guide you, keep you entertained. We got Audrey in Charleswood. Victoria Beach, MLB. Okay, awesome, guys. So I'll hopefully be able to share my screen, and nothing will break. We'll see. Can't guarantee that. Technology isn't always my friend, but you should see, I think that's an AI image of a woman on the beach taking in the moment. So if you've got that, quick thumbs up. Yes, no, maybe so. I can see Laura, I can see Sandra, Irene. Perfect. Shelley Glover is here too. Yes. Good stuff. Nice to see it. So why everything you think you know about fat loss over 40 is backwards? Strong statement, I know. I'm going to try to convince you of that over the course of the next 45 or so minutes, and do it in a way that, you know, provides you with enough insight that you at least question your current thoughts and beliefs. Okay, so it's not just another challenge spewing a bunch of information at you. We're going to try to make this a complete reset, so you walk away with tools and you have a plan going forward with or without me. All right, good. So after this call, you'll at least have some, what I call 6 simple tips to drop that summer bloat, lose upwards of 2 to 4 or 5 pounds in the next 7 to 10 days. That's the promise if you action those 6 steps. We're going to dive into what I call the fat loss lies that I see most people fall for, so that you'll never fall for them again. It'll save you lots of money, time, and frustration. And then the true pillars of transformation. Like, this is what everyone needs. And I'm trying to multitask with people in the waiting room and talk, and I'm not very good at that. So bear with me as people trickle in, and then we'll continue on. Oh, yes. And last chance, if you've jumped in the VIP, there's the link to do so. Oh, wait. I forgot the HTTPS on that. So we'll be doing an extra bonus training, a small group tomorrow with a one-to-one workshop, put you on the hot seat, and a bunch of goodies to go with that, including a 14-day pass to the app. So it might be worth your while. I'd say it's worth $490 for $490. I like to 10x everything I do. So if that interests you, jump in now. Last chance. All right. All right. Last sales pitch for the day. Let's get into brass tacks. So there will be a really good bonus just if you stay on this call. It won't be available to anyone who watches the replay or, you know, slides into my email inbox tomorrow. Really helpful tools to actually action what we're talking about today. That's all free at the end. Okay. I feel I could trade it for a pair of Jets tickets. Not a playoff ticket, but regular season game, couple $100, no doubt, for sure. So stay till the end. That's the catch. And that blueprint to drop at least 4 pounds, 5 pounds in the next little bit. So ideally, you're on a desktop. If you're not on a phone, I'd like to think your screen is focused on this training for at least the next 45 to 60. Because if you got 10 tabs open, we're not good multitaskers. You won't really benefit from this. You'll probably pick 1 or 2 things from it and forget the rest. And we want you actually walking away from this with clarity. So hopefully you've locked the kids away in a room where they're safe and you've got your tea and you're focused on this call, not what's on Netflix behind you. Yes? Good. All right. So this training was essentially selfish in means because I thought back to if I could give my 18-year-old self some advice, what would I tell him? And that's essentially what I put together into these slides over the next, I keep saying 45 minutes, but I haven't timed it. I would think it's going to be faster, but I'd like to give an estimate with Q&A. So we're looking at that. And that was me, a young Jay Leno with a protruding chin and a little extra fat and a lack of self-confidence. So how did I kind of back into this as a career path? Well, we're not gonna go too deep into those details, but the slide is not going next. One sec. All right, have to reshare the screen. It froze up. Okay, so you guys hopefully will see this. That is my junior high. Okay, so that's where I got the nickname Mitch Tits. Hopefully, no kids are within earshot too late. Because I, had man boobs and some extra pounds, and kids can be cruel in junior high, and that was sort of my tipping point to think, oh, I gotta change something here because it's really holding me back in life, and I couldn't be the funny chubby guy. I wasn't very funny, so I was screwed essentially, unless I got in shape. So that was sort of what led me down this path. Unfortunately, I didn't do anything right in the early going, and it all came to a head several years later in high school now, senior year, gym class. You guys may have heard this story, but this was my true rock bottom moment. So I have to kind of give the backstory. This was new technology at the time, these Omron body fat devices. We all know bioimpedance isn't very accurate nowadays, but it gives you a baseline. And the gym teacher at the time would probably get canceled in 2025. But at the time, he had everyone test their body fat. And then he went one by one, writing our names on the whiteboard from lowest body fat to worst. And I was, needless to say, I was at the bottom of that list and wanted to find a hole in the hardwood gym floor to bury myself in. And unfortunately, didn't have that option. So that kind of carried with me for a few years after that, even into university, where I tried dieting. I was certainly giving it my all. I just wasn't getting very far with it. The fad diets, the flavor of the month at that time. Well, I did kind of a keto diet at one point, but the first thing was just starve myself and do cardio and ignore the hunger pangs all day, skip lunch, and then sort of force a binge at night because I was, at my wit's end at that point. And what really happened was I'd lose weight fast and gain it right back and almost look worse afterwards. I got pretty good at running, actually. I did even some 10Ks and a half marathon, and I still was overweight. I'm like, what's going on here? This isn't adding up. And then lastly, I kind of got duped into the P90X. I went to a circuit workout gym at the time. I can't even remember what it was called. And none of that really got me too far, unfortunately. I was working hard. I was sweating enough, but I was missing something. These slides really do not want to cooperate right now, so let me. All right. I will try again. There it is. So let me scroll down. Live. This is real live. It's not just me, AI. AI would be too polished. So this is the quiz for you right here. So we'll go present. And my computer sucks. So do you believe any of these to be true? Type A, B, C, D, E, or F if none of these myths. I don't know if you can read them, but metabolism slows down with age. Carbs are the blame. Carbs are the cause of fat gain. Seed oils are the issue. Men have better genes for fat loss than women, or all of the above. Just a quick curious poll here. We got A, B. Jeremy knows where it's at. He's got an E. Got lots of Fs. Yes. Okay. Some of you guys know what you're talking about. This is good. I'm preaching to the choir here to some degree. So we're going to blast you with some science if you do believe some of these, and give you good news, because frankly, that means there's very little holding us back once we get the plan right. Okay. That's what we already said. So next question. Does getting fit require sacrificing your social life, especially nowadays? I'm doing this training on the Tuesday after August long. Really bad time for a fitness program. But does it require sacrificing social life? We got ones. Okay. We got twos. Yeah, not usually an issue. So yeah, if you're looking to be 6% body fat on a bodybuilding stage, then maybe the answer is one. If you just want to get to the best version of you, healthy, fit, and have a good balance in your life, absolutely two. And we're gonna prove that again tonight. So healthy body fat is actually a lot higher than you think. Like fitness magazines would have you believe that, you've got to be six-pack shredded with veins coming out of your ears to be healthy. This guy's oftentimes no healthier than, these mid-range body fats, because to get here, a lot of stimulants, often drugs, and it's usually short term, and your body, your physiology really suffers. Your testosterone goes to next to zero at that leanness, as it does when you're overfat, right? So the sweet spot for men is generally between 25%, maybe at the upper limit, but that's where the best health outcomes come about. So a little bit of belly, but not much, right? Maybe the outer abs or the top abs are showing. You're fit, healthy, etc., but it's higher than you think. For women, that number is even higher. Nothing from the top row is necessarily considered optimal. That said, every body is different, and what might be your best version of you, body fat wise, may not be great for your neighbor. And we intuitively know when we're not feeling our best and we're putting our health at risk. And for the most people we talk to, it's usually, high BMI, high body fat percentage. I know it's cut off at the bottom here, but if you're around 30% here, you're doing okay. We want you toned and tightened 25%. Awesome. But getting to this leanness, pretty difficult to sustain. So keep that in mind. As for me, I hate this photo because it shows a bit too much, but as proof in the pudding, ab veins, I feel my absolute worst. When I'm closer to 18 to 20% body fat, yeah, there's abs if I look in the right lighting and flex them, but for the most part, not. Way better sleep, better mood, way better productivity. And my family doesn't suffer by me being short with them because I'm suffering. So we want to talk about the old way versus the new way. And this is really the link between suffering in the same old patterns where you struggle for a bit, lose weight, but then gain it all back, versus the new way where it just becomes part of your identity for life. Okay. So what does that look like? Well, first off, we want to be in an abundance mindset, and that's hinting at, future slides here are going to talk about this in all areas of life, but that's where you enjoy the cookie. You don't have any guilt about it. And then your next meal is the protein and veggie one you had planned, right? Whereas too many get in this mindset where they try to grin and bear it, and they're letter perfect, then they have the cookie, then they have 6 cookies. And then I might as well wait for Monday, the rest of the weekend's a write-off. You see where that leads, right? So trying to get into this mindset where one little slip up is not the end of the world. It's about showing up consistently, imperfectly. Okay. Now the force versus flow, I got stuck in this force pattern for a long time when I first started, just wanting results yesterday and trying to do too much, hitting the gym 6 days a week when right now you're not going at all, right? Or chicken and broccoli, cut out all sugar, go on 75 hard, something with no balance or flexibility. White knuckling it is how I would word that. Whereas your flow is you do something you can actually sustain. You got 3 workouts in this week, great. Maybe you prep some meals, but you have meals out that you're already planning in advance for, all good. And you hit your big 5. We'll talk about that in a sec. Members will know all about that. It feels sustainable because it is. If you can't sustain it for a day, don't do it you're not going to do it forever, right? That's not the quote, but close enough. Again, outcome obsessed in the old way, where it's all about that scale and that's all that matters. I'm going to show you why that can really get you into trouble. Whereas when you're process driven, what can I do today to move me slightly closer to my goals? And then lastly is empowered, not deprived. I choose not to drink an extra beer tonight because I want to feel good tomorrow. Whereas, oh, I can't have an extra beer. It's not on my plan. One is like a victim, one's in power. Okay. So screenshot that page. It's helpful for everything in life, but certainly when it comes to fitness goals as well. Okay. When I talked about outcome obsessed with the scale being your only metric of success, oftentimes, if you just do everything in your power to see those numbers go down, you're not necessarily getting leaner. Okay, that might not make sense. But if you lose 3 pounds this week and 1.5 of those pounds are lean body mass, your body fat percentage is not changed. You're losing muscle at the same rate of fat. You're just getting skinnier, and not in a good way. It's like a bag of milk, essentially, is how I visualize that. We want you toning, tightening, preserving muscle, even gaining some muscle tone. Don't freak out. You won't get big like Arnold. But preserving muscle, preserving your metabolism, prioritizing fat loss. Because when you lose primarily fat on the scale, even if the number goes down slower, massive difference in how you look, perform, feel, but also in the likelihood of maintaining those results. Okay. So the big takeaway is just macro-focused nutrition and strength training versus cardio, just purely cardio and calorie counting only. Okay. So that's the shift you need to make. Fortunately, there's another way. You gotta have to lift some weights. All right. So that parlays nicely into our Big Five framework we use with all our clients, and we'll give you a tracker tonight to get kind of easier way into that. But it comes down to 5 things. Your nutrition, we call it our cap control. You do need to know what you're intaking in your mouth, because that ultimately determines how much fat we lose. So you don't have to track calories, but it is the best method in the early going. I'm bullish on the technology coming to a head where, you can just snap a pic of your meal and it'll give you a breakdown. There is apps out there. We're having it built into our client app right now, but it's not quite accurate enough for my liking yet. Like confuses a pear and a potato, and you're clearly not going to get optimal results if it's guessing like that. So figuring out your targets, nailing those consistently. Your water, 3 liters a day is generally the target. Your steps, don't obsess about a certain step count, but look at what you're averaging now and definitely try to bump it up if your goal is fat loss. And then you got to manage your sleep and stress and strength training to preserve muscle. You do those 5 things, 80% compliance or better, you will get results. Okay. All right. So what does this look like? Cap control. A lot of people overthink this one. You want to be in a sustainable calorie reduction. So you have to figure out your maintenance calories and then reduce those by roughly 15%. I wouldn't go too aggressive. You could do 25% in short spurts, but you're going to be suffering. There's going to be higher hunger with that. Yeah, 3 liters a day. Yeah. 2 to 4 liters is general range. Especially if you're working out consistently, you're going to need to hydrate. So a simple formula, I don't like simple formulas with this because there is nuance, but like take your current body weight by 10, that should be an aggressive diet for most. That should be, 200 pounds times 10, 2,000 calories a day. You should lose roughly a pound a week at that, even with modest activity levels. Next up, though, you do need protein to be a percentage of that. So ideally, it's 1 gram per pound of goal weight. So if you're 200 pounds, 2,000 calories, you want to get to 180 pounds, 180 grams per day of protein spread out over 3-4 meals. And I like this front-loading protein and fiber to control hunger throughout the day. I find I'm less likely to snack in the evening if I filled up on the good stuff early. Okay. But that's individualized thing. But that's essentially the starting point for that. We already talked about this, 3 liters of water. Salt, don't be scared of salt, especially if your diet is low in sodium. It's going to work in conjunction with the water to hydrate you. Your thyroid actually benefits from iodized salt. So I know there's a lot of scare tactics out there. If you've got unregulated, unmanaged high blood pressure, you may have to obviously manage this. But for the vast majority of people, salt is your friend in moderation. And then drinking before meals is a bit of a hack for reducing appetite. A big glass of water. Sleep, probably the hardest one for most of you guys on here, because of our lifestyles and our obsession with screens. you should be in bed for 8 hours to get 7 hours of sleep. If your alarm's going off in 6, 7 hours from when you finally lay down, you're going to shortchange yourself on REM sleep. You're going to not be as adaptable to stress. You'll actually burn less body fat because you breathe it out while you sleep. And it's a cascade effect on everything else, right? So we call it the Amish hour. No offense if you're of Amish descent. We appreciate you guys. We love what you do. But no more screens, at least 30 minutes before. Try that. Read on your Kindle if you need the screen dimmed. But that should be time for bedroom gymnastics with your spouse, hot shower, that can help wind you down for sleep. Anything that doesn't involve intense TV shows, okay? And a cool room is generally a good rule of thumb. And probably the biggest tip is to have the same sleep schedule, 7 days a week. So you're not up till 2 a.m. on Saturdays. Okay, next up, strength training. So compound lifts, but that can be just purely hand weights, dumbbells. As long as you're challenged by the weight you're choosing, your body doesn't recognize the difference between a barbell or dumbbell or machine, as long as you're getting the reps that matter. And what those are those last couple reps. When you start to struggle, you want to push the weight up fast, but you physically can't because it's getting to that point of near muscular failure. If you're doing that enough times in a workout, pretty safe bet you're optimized here. Obviously, it can be nuanced, and it does differ by gender a little bit because everyone has different focuses. But if you just screenshot that page, that's a good place to start. All right, we're almost to the big five. Drop in the comments any questions, of course. I'll try to monitor the chat while I go through this. But the next one is steps. So arbitrary number, really. What I found is 8 to 10,000 steps is doable, although challenging for most people, but not unrealistic. Like telling someone to hit 15,000 steps a day, yes, they'll lose fat faster. Very unlikely unless you work as a roofer or a mailman. Postie. Mailman wouldn't be the correct term nowadays. My brother's a mailman, so this number helps you earn more food, supports your diet, so you don't have to be so perfect with your nutrition. And there's a lot of evidence that above 7,000 steps per day, you are greatly reducing your risk of dying from all causes, except maybe a bus if you walk in a busy urban area. But other than that, greatly improving your odds of living longer and reducing risk of disease, this and that, and the other thing. So definitely worth your time, even if it isn't just for fat loss purposes, but it helps. And the best time, if you can only squeeze it in for 10 minutes, is right after a meal. And then last but not least, habit stacking. You may have heard James Clear, I think it's called temptation bundling or something, where you have something that you do almost consistently daily, you enjoy it, pair that with movement, pair that with a workout or whatever. Like the guy who synced up his resistance bike to Netflix, and he could only stream shows when he was pedaling at a high enough speed, RPM. None of us are engineers, so that's probably a next level hack, but at least get in the habit of until you get your steps in, you can't watch the show, or watch the show and get your steps. Win-win. Habit stacking, indeed. Okay, so this is the, you'll have to make a copy of this. This is the little fat loss tracker we developed for this training, where you essentially will track your big five. It gives you kind of a score, a weekly summary, percentage-wise, how things are going, and helps you identify pretty quickly where things are at. So if you're a spreadsheet person, even if you're not, I would give this a go for at least 1 week. And then you just copy and paste these back down if you want to continue this on forever. All right. Beautiful. Hopefully you have that now. And you've made a copy. I don't think it'll allow you to edit that one. I don't want you to break the blocks, but you should be able to make a copy. Okay. So yes, download, complete your baseline, try to attempt to track daily. Thanks, guests, you're drawn on the screen. For at least a week to give it a go, and then review the percentage. This is essentially what I do as a coach with our clients. It's a little easier in our app because it's not a spreadsheet. It's a little more automated. But it helps us identify where we're having issues, where we can improve, or what we double down on, right? What gets measured gets managed. It's the first rule of success. All right. So my beautiful slide has green lines through it, but nonetheless. So why most diets fail? This is what I struggled with for the better part 4 or 5 years, right into my 20s there until I hired Ken Hill, the coach, and I'll talk about it in a bit. But I would get really motivated by something new, a shiny object. A couple of weeks would go by. I might get results, I might not. And sometimes I'd lose motivation or something in life would happen that disrupted my rhythm. No backup plan, back to square one, rinse and repeat. And that became the screw it spiral, where you're not getting results fast enough, or you have one off-plan meal, all or nothing thinking, day is ruined, might as well keep this train going. And then restarting on Monday, rinse and repeat. And the world is set up to screw it, right? We get invited out for drinks. We have one too many, and that cascades into the wrong food choices. We sleep in, we skip a workout, and then, yeah, one day leads into 5. It's very easy to fall into this. So you have to have a system and support to avoid it. That's the game. All right. So at the end of the day, I hate the word motivation. When someone says, I'm just not motivated to do X, Y, Z, no one is. So it's commitment, because you need to be consistent regardless of your feelings, because we do know it's good for us to do all these things. We feel better when we do these things, but for whatever reason, we don't, because we're waiting for motivation, or we think we have to be perfect, and that's not true either. Okay. So think momentum, commitment over motivation. That's what's going to carry you forward. Jacqueline, that was the calorie deficit calculation. Maintenance would be a lot more calories. So yeah, I would try that. What on paper never translates perfectly to the real world. Sorry to go off on a tangent here, but you have to track consistently for 2 weeks to see what change is happening, if anything. All right, a couple more things, and then we're gonna kind of speed wobble here and see how everyone's doing. So the vicious cycle is essentially, I'm not good enough to succeed, or I make a mistake. Those negative emotions bubble to the surface. Then we actively self-sabotage. Our actions align with the negative emotions and beliefs. Then C, we reinforce that. I knew I would fail. I always fail. Whereas we want to get into this virtuous cycle where I learn and grow from every setback. Try to stay high up in your vibration with confidence, curiosity, excitement. And then when you're in positive emotional states more often, you make better decisions, more aligned actions. And of course, you get results by better actions. So then you have this positive feedback loop. Virtuous cycle. Pretty much applies to anything in life, but absolutely fat loss, especially early on when you're struggling. You want to find the wins. Okay, type 1 in the chat if so far everything's making sense, or like Jacqueline did, feel free to share it in the chat. We're going to go into the lies you've been sold, and then those 6 tips to get some actual results right away. And then what I call the true pillars of transformation that go beyond the tactics. We've already talked about those. I love it. We've got lots of ones. Okay, so no one I need to help. All right. This is a big one. You need to detox. You need an anti-inflammatory. I'm just inflamed. Truth bomb here. It's not inflammation, it's body fat. Okay. So getting leaner is going to reduce the bloating, whatever you call inflammation. You don't need to go out and get a detox tea or some exotic supplement package. Basically, it makes you crap your brains out. So the scale goes down. You think it's working, then you actually reintroduce some food and water to your life, and you're back up to square one. So if I get nothing else from this training, I want to reduce the number of sales of AG1 and teas and detoxes that are rampant out there. Most of it's crap. Your body has a very sophisticated detoxification system. It's called your kidneys and your liver. So number 2 is overly simplified, this eat less, move more mindset, where we talked about it already. I'm not sure what's going on with this image. There's a lot of misspelled words. AI sucks. Severe calorie restriction with cardio, we already talked about that, would lead to weight loss if that was your only goal. But no one's goal is just purely weight loss. It's fat loss. You don't want to actively lose bone, muscle, lean tissue, right? I'm assuming you want to keep those things around because life is better with those things. So it's often the real challenge with this one is it's just really hard to stay consistent with something that's overly restrictive. That's the problem with it. So eat less, move more. Yes, on paper, that is technically true, but it's way more nuanced than that if you want results that last. All right, so this might, get people's guard up a little bit. Fasting is the key to fat loss, and I challenge that. For the right individual, it can make sense. And I'm a fan of what I call an overnight rest period for your digestion, like from 8 p.m. to 10 a.m., 12 to 14 hours. That's more than enough time to turn on autophagy, to give your digestion a rest and kind of reset metabolism and so on, right? The problem I see, especially with women, is the hormonal imbalances that can occur. You're already especially if you're over 40, 50, you're already towing a fine line there, right? And it can exacerbate the situation by increasing cortisol levels, disrupting sleep, etc. Okay. So if it works for you, by all means. I have been an advocate of like modified fasting in the past. It worked okay. I just find I work too hard to maintain lean body mass to just sacrifice it. And fasting really makes me a real angry human. So unfortunately, the days my emails are short and to the point is often the days I am extending my fast for no good reason. So if that's you, I wouldn't try to force a square peg in a round hole. It can be a tool for the right people, but it's not magic. All right, no eating after 7 p.m. This is still pretty much widespread. And it's not a bad tool if you find you really get in that habit of snacking and getting into the pantry, and maybe a rule of saying closing the kitchen at 7 p.m. works great for you. But there's no magical fat storing mode that kicks on at 7:01. Okay. Even in a study where the participants ate their largest meal at dinner, it moved into that 7 p.m. plus window, lost just as much weight as those who ate it at breakfast, as long as total calories were equated. Okay. So one caveat for me is my sleep quality, and the research is clear on this, is much better when I don't eat too close to bedtime. If I'm starving out of bed, it doesn't work either. But like I say, 3 hours out from when you hit the pillow is generally a pretty good rule of thumb. Okay, this one's kind of confusing by the title, but essentially that frequent meals is a bit of a myth where you have to eat every 2-3 hours to boost your metabolism. And it's simply not true. That's been debunked. And at the same time, starvation mode has largely been debunked as well, where, well, I'm eating too little and that's why I'm gaining weight. No, that's not how it works. So find your sweet spot. I like to have, meal mid-morning, and then I can stretch my lunch to a little bit later, and then dinner kind of follows at the usual time. Okay. And then oftentimes that gives me room for a snack before that 8 p.m. before bedtime window. Okay. So if this works for you, great. I find I get more hungry with more frequent meals rather than bigger, satisfying meals less frequently. Okay. And this one kind of lines up with the others, but carbs don't transform into fat. Like I see, oh, you can have a meal, but you can't have carbs after 8 p.m. And there's no real rule on this. Carbs don't turn to fat as long as you aren't exceeding your total daily calorie needs. Again, go to Italy. Lots of pasta and bread at night. They're all relatively lean. What's their secret? Well, it's the total daily intake. And they move a bit more than us. Okay. All right. This one, if you're diabetic, by all means, you're going to have to reduce your sugar. But for the vast majority of us, sugar is fine within the context of our plan. No one's gotten obese from bananas and apples alone, I promise you. So I like sugar because it tastes damn good. I just have to be careful with it, especially if it's combined with a bunch of fats, say a donut, say French fries, that kind of thing. So modest consumption is the game, but an occasional cookie is not going to kill you. That's kind of the takeaway here is we talk about the 80-20 rule, 80% whole foods, fill you up, lots of micronutrients, but you should still have some room for fun. I mean, food scientists have come a long way. They've created these delicacies that taste damn good. Yes, they may not be perfect for us, a little high in sugar, but I think we need a bit of that in our life. I don't know. That's just me. Okay. Last couple here is the idea that if you do cardio on an empty stomach first thing in the morning, it's more effective because it increases fat oxidation, but there is a difference between oxidation and actually burning body fat. That just means that it's your preferred energy source during the exercise. So do cardio at a time when it makes sense for you. If you're cutting into your sleep by 2 hours to get up early to do cardio, I'd argue that's a poor exchange. Find a time during your day when it sets up better. Okay. All right. Of the lies so far, I'd love to see if you have a number that was surprising to you or you knew already. Just type it out. You may not recall them all, so I won't put you on blast. But if you do recall one that jumped out, type it in the chat. I'd love to see what kind of stood out. Spot reduction in the ab obsession. Okay, so your body mobilizes fat from all over based on like genetic factors you can't control. I liken it to targeted fat losses, like trying to drain one corner of a pool with a straw. Unfortunately, the water levels drop evenly no matter where you're sucking from, right? That's the same idea with fat loss. Oftentimes, the spots we notice the least change are because there's more fat there and it's the last to go, stomach, for example. So you can't, crunch your way to a tight core, a stronger core, certainly, and the muscle underneath is getting built, but actually reducing that fat on top, that's from your nutrition in conjunction with weight training, the combination of the two long over time is how you change those. Okay. Okay, big one is this: weight training, bulky myths. Weight training makes women bulky, in particular, more so comes from women. Women should just look to men for an example of this not being true, because there's a lot of guys trying to get bulky who aren't. That should tell you something. It's simply hard to do with your hormonal environment the way it is. You just don't have a lot of testosterone unless you inject it exogenously. The best part is you'll look leaner without getting obsessively lighter. And that's actually how muscle works. I have a sample pound of fat somewhere on my desk here, whereas that's a blob, right? Muscle is dense and smaller, takes up less space, but weighs the same. Okay. So you'll actually get smaller, but look leaner, if that makes sense. It's an evolving process, but the more you prioritize building strength, muscle tone, the better you'll look. And you won't get bulky, I promise you. That's a long process. I'm still trying to do it. Okay, last couple here is the more you sweat, the better your workout, right? I don't know if you've heard that. I would type a 1 in the chat if that's something you believe. You go to certain gyms, Orange Theory for one, and they track your heart rate or how many calories you burn. Those metrics don't really matter in the end. If you've been on some of my past trainings, the body adapts to the calories we burn through exercise. There's only so much benefit we can get from that, unfortunately. So where you're focusing your attention, or should be, is prioritizing strength gains, preserving muscle, getting stronger, working your cardiovascular health. So that can come from sweating, but oftentimes zone 2, steady state cardio, walking at a brisk pace has immense benefits there, doesn't burn you out. And then mobility work, right? So we don't want to be stiff as a board. So we do need to implement some flexibility, mobility training. But counterintuitively, the best way to be a more mobile person is to lift weights in a stretched position under load. That's going to improve your flexibility more than just static stretching, yoga, etc. Okay. Okay. Last but not least, I want to throw this one in there is scale obsession. Because the scale will lie to you, we still want to consider it a trend over time. You want to watch your numbers and see your weekly average. And especially if you feel like you have 30 pounds to lose, you should be seeing the number go down over time. But day-to-day fluctuations can really throw you off for a variety of reasons. Might be that time of the month. Maybe you're backed up. Maybe you had carbs a little bit later than usual or a really hard workout and your muscles are inflamed. You're holding more water. those can all contribute to that number being a little skewed. So this is where half my job is talking people off the ledge when this happens as a coach and showing them the overall trend. But if it's just you and the scale really gets in your head, maybe step away from it, or potentially way more often. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, getting a weekly average to compare to last week. And if it's down overall, good to go. All right. So despite all those lies that people seem to focus on, this is really the nuts and bolts of it. What's often sabotaging people's progress is we're chronically stressed and we're not getting good sleep as a result. And this does promote fat storage, but that's also a byproduct of aging, where you're not necessarily just gaining a belly magically. You are consuming excess calories, but it's being redistributed to spots that may not have when you were younger, i.e. belly for women, right? Muscle loss, huge piece to the puzzle. It's slowing your metabolism the more you lose it, especially this happens even faster if you diet in dumb ways, like we talked about. Crash dieting, not doing anything to keep muscle around. And in conjunction with that, not putting protein as the star of the show, because it truly is. Okay, it fills you up. It has a higher thermic effect. I don't know if I've already bored you to tears with this, but at least 30% of the calories from protein don't count. Because think of the meat sweats. It takes a lot more effort for your body to digest protein than carbs or fats. And then the real variable to look at, unfortunately, is our overconsumption as a culture as a whole. Most of us are just simply overeating. And it's nothing to do with our hormones, our age, or our stage of life. Metabolism barely changes from 30 to 60 and then drops gradually after that. So what's causing the weight gain? Overconsumption. Due to lifestyle factors, you're more stressed, you have less time in your hands to move, your kids are on you. There are reasons for it, but it's not your metabolism, which is the good news. Okay. All right, of these four, just type in the chat which one you feel you need the most improvement on, or you might have overlooked to this point. I'd love to get a quick poll there, and then we can keep this thing moving. I want to wrap up here in the next 7 to 10 minutes. Protein piece. Yeah, okay, so protein's coming up a lot. Overconsumption, yeah. Okay. Well, no, there's not real one standout there, which is interesting. Which means whatever you wrote down, refer back to the slides, either on the recording or if you screenshotted it, to the section that pertains to where you feel you need the most improvement. And then that quick checklist will help you out. I just wanted to slide this in there because I've been seeing a lot of people talking, oh, I don't want any stress in my life. It's causing me a lot of pain and heartache. But there's actually a point of too little stress can get us into trouble. Too little stress leads to complacency, atrophy. Like, just think of a muscle that's not worked, it shrinks. The brain, no different. Withers away without challenge. Whereas the Goldilocks growth zone is what we call it. And there was another, I think there's a podcast with Ed Milat. I forget the speaker now. She's got a book out. I'll find it for you guys, but stress paradox or something, where when we're challenged enough, it triggers adaptations without overwhelming recovery and we get sick. There's a sweet spot for everything. But just think of like a workout where you raise your heart rate up a lot, but then it goes down to a lower baseline later, right? You have a resting heart rate of 40. That's an athlete. That's someone that pushes their heart a lot, but now at rest, it can work a lot easier. So we want to push these systems to a point where they have to adapt, recover, get stronger, but not to a point of extreme hormonal dysregulation, inflammation, burnout, all these things. So everyone's kind of sweet spot is different, but I find not too much intense exercise, but enough, not too aggressive of a calorie deficit, maybe having periods of time where you're in maintenance and getting your sleep and all those other things to balance out the hard stuff with the recovery in a 1-to-1 ratio. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. I'll slide that in. So the big takeaway on this one is, for every regular activity you challenge yourself with, just pair it with a recovery practice you follow, like, hard weightlifting session or a HIIT workout, maybe followed by breath work at after the workout or some point later in the day, and that should balance things out nicely. All right. Oh yeah, mention this VIP for those who are members already. Noon tomorrow, the roadmap to the final 5 months of 2025. We've got some cool stuff included as well. So hopefully you carve that 30 minutes out on your calendar as well. All right. So moving on to the last piece, 6 tips to drop a few pounds this week. Protein by 10 a.m. I talked about front loading that with fiber, craving reduction of 25% in research, more stable blood sugar. So ideally you're getting at least 30 grams of protein. Everyone's different. Everyone's target's different. So that's kind of the baseline. More might be better to a point, but it just curbs cravings, helps you hit your protein target, obviously, for the day, so you're not chasing later in the day. And it could be scrambled eggs and a Greek yogurt parfait like the picture shows here, but even easier is like a protein smoothie. Anything that's going to get you to that goal within a couple hours of waking up. Doesn't have to be right away. Give it a try. Let me know. In research, people just ate less at the end of the day. And there is kind of a theory that until you hit your protein threshold, your body's going to crave more and more food. And unfortunately, we eat so much carbs and fats and little protein that we can consume all that and not feel satiated because we're not addressing this. So keep that in mind. Diet uniform, we call it. Like, I am all for flexibility and going out to eat when, you can fit it in. But it also makes your life so much easier to have like a couple, 2 or 3 breakfasts and lunches on repeat that you don't really have to think too much about. They're easy to prepare. They hit your numbers and you enjoy them, of course. That's a caveat. And when you bore of one, you rotate in another one. Okay. This also makes prep and planning a lot easier. Now, with it being summer, still lots of social events. Try the 1 plate rule. Yes, you can go pretty far with this one and pile on a plate, but usually it forces you to kind of limit your options and pick and choose. Oh, I want dessert, but I can't have both, so I'm going to choose 1 slice of this. Right. So no refills or second plates. It tends to, limit the damage by default. The treat meal strategy, I hate the idea of a cheat day or a cheat weekend, but if you have something on the calendar to look forward to each week, I find it improves adherence the rest of the time. So maybe it's that homemade pizza night with the kids or family on Fridays, or you go out for sushi every Saturday. Whatever it is, it's, there's no real magic to it other than the psychological benefit. And as long as the rest of the day kind of falls in line with this, I think it's a real worthwhile strategy, especially nowadays in the summer. Okay, we talked about weighted vesting in the past, but it just adds a little bit more burn to weigh yourself down while walking, especially if you've adapted well to walking at this point. You could do an incline on a treadmill, but outdoor walking with a backpack, even with a couple textbooks in it, that could count. I like HIIT because too many of us adults, I think I saw research where, majority of adults over 40 never sprint again in their life. And that's not acceptable because our heart, like we talked about earlier, when it's pushed way past baseline, it adapts to where at rest, your heart doesn't have to work so damn hard because you've built it stronger. So HIIT has a bit of a fat loss benefit, but cardiovascular benefit as well. And you're challenging yourself. There's so many benefits to that. Just be careful overdoing it, is all I'm saying. Not my area of expertise, but I had to throw this one out there because Ozempic is the most searched for term in our space. And this is the next generation version of that, retatrutide. Triple agonist, meaning it actually increases metabolism a bit at rest, whereas Ozempic just crashes your appetite. I don't know where to get it. I would exercise caution, but I said I'd share everything on this call, and this is one of those. I am fairly bullish on the use of GLP-1s for the right person. Usually someone that's clinically obese, that has tried the lifestyle change and hasn't made it stick, then you can explore this through your doctor. The caveat being, these are the 2 that you can get off the black market through a licensed professional. And they work as well. More side effects, generally speaking, in terms of gastric distress i.e. diarrhea or lack thereof, the opposite effect. And you often see a lot of weight regain after discontinuation. So it might be something you have to continue forever, which right now there's a cost to this. So just making sure I address this, because I'm sure that was a question lingering for somebody. Okay. Hopeful that they will play a role, just not sold on those being your first choice. Because if you don't change your lifestyle alongside, you're going to end up right back where you started, like we talked about off the top. So with all that said, open to a better way. For me, the 3 C's have been my guiding light. This is actually what led to losing 60 pounds in the first place. It wasn't any particular diet. It was a guy named Ken Hill who had an email who I connected with on the forums. And every Monday I'd have to send him kind of an update on my food for the week. And he would grill me or offer some guidance. And sure enough, that accountability weekly is what finally led me to get off that roller coaster of jumping from fad to fad, because I had a coach and a community, not even a community at that point. It was just an email. We do a lot better nowadays. But coaching, community, and consistency, because information rarely leads to transformation. We all have AI now. We all have Google. It doesn't seem to solve our issues. It gives us the information, but we don't implement consistently. So why is that? Well, I find you need someone to spot your blind spots. This guy, a grainy photo, because I was in Mexico at the time. My mindset mentor, I pay 2,000 USD months to, and he just recently stopped my payments. Not because I left the program, but because he's no longer aligned with the business that is making him over $120,000 in profit a month. So why do I pay a guy like this? Not for the business tactics, because I want to level up my mindset. And I have to get around people that feel differently, that see the world differently. You level up when you're around people that bring you up, not pull you down, right? And there's his message in the group of cutting it all off. Stopped everyone's payments, taking a 2-month sabbatical. Wouldn't be my thing, but he leads by intuition and belief. And there's some real power in that, right? Which is why I put myself in these rooms where I'm a small fish, to really get around people that see things differently. Because if it's just you and your own thoughts and beliefs, you tend to stay exactly where you are, right? So that's one example. Not to say you have to go out and hire a business mentor or anything like that. I'm not saying that. But if what you're doing now doesn't feel like you're getting results, you're kind of stuck, it's probably because you're lacking one of those 3 C's, right? A lone wolf who never invests in themselves. Like a new car or vacation doesn't count here. Those are toys, those are entertainment. But into your personal, professional development, there is true power in that. And I'm such a believer in it, because I wouldn't be where I am without it. I promise you. So the community, same idea. Because when you're surrounded by people who live the habits you want, change just sticks. If you're around a bunch of crabs in the bucket, you just end up kind of falling to the common denominator, right? If you're around people, even places, even things that just don't support your new vision for yourself, it's really hard to break out. Isolation is the enemy of consistency, because consistency is ultimately where the magic happens. It's not in starting over every 2 months and going gangbusters for a week or two. It's those small repeated actions that beat big bursts of burnout, right? Okay, we already talked about this. So which of those C's are you missing? Is it the coach? Is it the community? Is it consistency overall? Then we can figure out the solution. Kim's missing all of them. Okay, we'll have to fix that. Unless you like where you're at, then just stay and do what you're doing. All for Christina, community for green. Yeah, peer-to-peer accountability goes far. So lots of alls here. So if you look at like your last 6 months, let's go 8 months, 7 months, like to the start of 2025, like, are you in a better spot ultimately? That would be the question to ask. Is what you're doing getting you these consistent results? Then great, ignore my advice. But if you're not, try to address these 3 C's, because that is all I can speak to is my own experience. And when I was stuck at 260 pounds, Ken Hill, at least the coach was covered, and that forced my consistency. And in business, I had to believe different things, become a new identity, 2.0 version of myself. So I surrounded myself with a mentor and a community with the aforementioned Dan Bolton. That's where the magic happens. Promise you. A lot of them are on the call. Actually, if you're a member right now, just share what's working for you overall. I'd love to hear what's the secret sauce for you. But we've been at this a while. Ryan, even though he's cut up with these green lines from whoever wrote on the screen, a lot of weight loss, blood pressure went way down. Martha, who's may or not be on, I can't tell. Lots of weight loss at 50. Maria crushed it, got back into a 2-piece. I think all of you guys know that what we do works. It's just whether or not you believe you'll do the work to see these results, right? And all I can say is you're setting yourself up for a higher percentage of success if you're around a coach and a community. Works over 50. This is a weird slide. I forgot to put a third photo in there. Anonymous ladies over 50. Ladies over 50 don't like to show their photos, but these are terrific changes. So you don't need to overhaul everything. You just need a community coach, those 3 C's. Okay. So ultimately, at this point, there is no later, there's only now. So if you feel inspired to start, take action with what you've learned tonight. That's great. If you're confident you can do it on your own, even better. Jason says the community's been a big help. Yeah, you've been an integral part of the community. That's great. And Heather echoes that. Coaching consistency. So what I find is the law of diminishing intent. The longer I wait to take an action on something, the lower my motivation, my spark for change comes about. So if you feel that spark of desire to change, take one positive step forward today. It doesn't have to be anything with me, but of what you learned tomorrow, write it down and do something. That's going to be better than nothing. But of course, you take big actions, big results can come about. Because I think of this as a pyramid where that sustainable nutrition, habits, having actual check-ins and monitoring, and then focus on, achievement goals over time, you're going to succeed in the long run. It's all about putting it into a package that works. So screenshot this is that lose a few pounds fast checklist, everything we kind of whipped through on that section, what you can implement right away, make a huge difference. We got someone wanting to do the weighted knapsack. Excellent. So as promised, hopefully this is a blueprint to get you going. If you've gained some pounds over summer and you've started to slide in your habits, the blueprint tonight will help you lose a few pounds. That's great. But I'd love to give you more info on our system, right? That actually works sustainably over time so you get permanent results. The gas on the fire. So type yes in the chat if you're interested in hearing this. I'm going to do this in 2 minutes or less, and then we'll be on our way. And you'll get your bonus as promised at the end here. Okay. We got lots of yeses in the chat. Cool. Love to see it. So I call this an insane CalFit guarantee because a lot of weight loss programs don't work. And you still have to do your part in it, right? But we can promise you when you hit your compliance targets, you'll lose 2 pant sizes in the first 90 days or you don't pay. And I'll even gift you a Costco gift card for wasting your time. So that's our bold promise. Our system has been proven through 1,500 plus people now. Not everyone succeeds, but over 90% get this outcome. The other 10% disappear, ghost me at some point. So don't be a ghost and you'll succeed. Pretty simple. So how it works? Well, proof of concept. I don't really need to go too much through that sales pitch. I think you guys understand what I'm all about. I actually run a wait list now, 10 months of the year, except for August, July, August, summer, makes sense, where I just cap my client list and just kind of pick off the people that I think would be great fits. And Dan helped me set that up because I was kind of tapped out earlier in the year. So what we'll do on this free assessment though, is just map out a specific plan for you, clear roadmap. I'll put it in the chat. If you see an open spot on the calendar and it works with your schedule, great, nab a spot there. And I'm not a sales guy, so it won't be that. We'll lead with value, and then if we think it makes sense to work together, we can certainly talk options at that point. Okay. Don't book this if you're already a member. Those in the chat, we can set up some separately. Okay. Awesome. I see Brian already booked. Holy shoot. Action taker. Okay. Good stuff. So before I even talk, Brian's already on. So what you'll get with this is a personalized plan, nutrition-wise. The habits, the big five, will kind of set up what's realistic for you. Obviously, identify what's holding you back, or else we wouldn't be having the call in the first place. And then kind of walk through how the program works. And you can take it or leave it at that point. All right. Stacy too. Okay, the calls are coming in. So if you're interested, or if you're not sure, questions, you can slide into my email inbox, mitch@mitchcover.com. Put that here, and we can just have a chat combo first. Sandra says the program is great. Big Five works. Thanks, Sandra. Your check's in the mail. So beyond that, let's wrap up tonight's call. Drop your questions in the chat if you have any that came up from tonight. We will absolutely get the replay out for everyone that was on live. And I do have this bonus, the bonus vault for being on live. What's in it? Well, I don't need to really tell you what's in it. I'll just give you the link. So hopefully no one else, please don't share this outside the chat. But you can click through that. The 5-team method, this is going to be especially handy over summer. It's going to show you how to kind of have relaxed weekends and still get measurable results, whether that's maintenance or actively fat loss. We talked about protein a lot. So I've got your protein meals. I got your protein breakfast. And then the Big Five tracker and the Big Five roadmap will actually help you. If you do the tracker and you're struggling in a certain area, come back to the roadmap document, and it gives you a crowdsourced document of our members sharing what worked for them to hit their water goal, for example. So hopefully you save that link. Last chance. I'm not sharing it anywhere else. Okay. Oops, that's the VIP slides. So that's it for tonight. I'm hoping I can get back to the chat. Irene lost 2 pant size, feel great. Yes. Thanks again. Your check is also in the mail. Guest needed a nudge. Okay. A nudge is helpful. Action is the remedy, though. So I don't want you coming back here 6 months from now saying I need another nudge because I didn't do anything. So take some action from tonight. That's my wish for everyone here. Okay. Going once, twice. No questions. Kirsten's lost 25 pounds and 3 sizes. Okay, guys, you should be sold by now. It works. My work here is done. Join CalFit. That was the summary. Awesome call, guys. We'll see you again soon. You guys know where to find me if you have questions. Have a great rest of your week. And good night.